The night Victoria Blackwood showed up at his doorstep, rain-soaked and desperate, was the same night Marcus had decided to end it all. Not his life, but the fight that had consumed it for the past year. How could he have known that the woman who destroyed everything he'd built would become his salvation? If you're drawn into stories of redemption, unexpected love, and second chances, hit that like button and subscribe to see more emotional journeys that remind us it's never too late to rewrite your story. Marcus Reynolds stared at the eviction notice in his hand, the paper trembling slightly between his calloused fingers. 3 months behind on rent. His savings depleted. Job prospects non-existent. All because Victoria Blackwood, tech billionaire and CEO of Blackwood Industries, had blacklisted him across the industry after he'd refused to compromise his ethics on their last project together. "Daddy, is dinner ready yet?" 6-year-old Lily appeared in the doorway of their small apartment kitchen, clutching the worn teddy bear that had been her constant companion since her mother's death 3 years ago. Marcus quickly folded the notice and tucked it into his pocket, forcing a smile. "Almost, sweetheart. Why don't you set the table?" As Lily carefully arranged their mismatched plates and silverware, Marcus stirred the pot of mac and cheese, the third time this week they were having it. Once upon a time, he'd been one of the most sought-after software architects in the country, commanding 6-figure contracts. Now, he couldn't even land an entry-level position, all because he'd stood up to Victoria Blackwood when he discovered her company was harvesting user data illegally. The rain pounded against the windows of their small apartment as they ate dinner, Lily chattering about her day at school, blissfully unaware of their precarious situation. Marcus nodded and smiled at all the right moments, but his mind was elsewhere, calculating how many more weeks they could survive before he'd have to swallow his pride and call his parents for help. After tucking Lily into bed with a story, Marcus sat at his desk, staring at his laptop screen. One email after another, rejections. Always the same vague language about not being the right fit or pursuing other candidates. The industry wasn't that big, word had gotten around. Victoria Blackwood had made sure of that. The doorbell rang, startling him. It was nearly midnight. Who would be visiting at this hour? Cautiously, he approached the door and peered through the peephole. His heart stopped. Victoria Blackwood stood in his hallway, her normally perfect appearance in disarray. Her designer clothes were soaked through, her dark hair plastered to her face, mascara running down her cheeks. She looked nothing like the ice queen who had coldly informed him a year ago that he would never work in this industry again. Against his better judgment, Marcus opened the door. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice low to avoid waking Lily. Victoria's eyes, usually sharp and calculating, were red-rimmed and desperate. "I need your help, Marcus. You're the only one who can save my company." The irony wasn't lost on him. "You destroyed my career, and now you want my help?" "Please," she whispered, a word he'd never heard from her lips before. "Just hear me out. I wouldn't be here if I had any other option." Something in her voice, vulnerability he'd never witnessed from the notoriously ruthless businesswoman, made him step aside and let her in. That night changed everything. Victoria explained that the same data harvesting system Marcus had refused to implement had been installed by his replacement, and now Blackwood Industries was facing a massive security breach that threatened to expose millions of users' personal information. The scandal would not only destroy her company but potentially harm countless innocent people. "Why should I help you?" Marcus asked, arms crossed over his chest. Victoria looked him straight in the eyes. "Because you're not like me. You actually care about doing the right thing." Over the next weeks, against his better judgment, Marcus found himself working alongside Victoria to patch the security breach. He worked remotely from his apartment while Lily was at school, and Victoria provided him with everything he needed. For the first time in a year, he was doing what he loved again, his fingers flying across the keyboard, solving complex problems that challenged his mind. Victoria was different than he remembered. The arrogant, cold executive had been replaced by someone more human, someone who brought pizza for dinner and asked about Lily's drawings on the refrigerator. Someone who, he discovered, had her own wounds and regrets. "Why did you do it?" he asked her one night as they worked late after Lily had gone to bed. "Why did you blacklist me?" Victoria's fingers paused over her laptop keyboard. "Because you scared me," she admitted quietly. "No one had ever stood up to me like that before. No one had ever made me question myself. It was easier to make you disappear than to face what you were saying might be true." As they worked together to fix the security breach, Marcus began to see beyond Victoria's carefully constructed facade. He learned about her childhood in foster care, her determination to never be powerless again, the loneliness at the top that had slowly turned her heart to stone. And she, in turn, witnessed his unwavering devotion to Lily, his integrity despite the hardships it had caused him, his resilience in the face of the devastation she had wrought on his life. The night they finally closed the security breach, preventing what would have been a catastrophic data leak, Victoria opened a bottle of champagne she'd brought to celebrate. To doing the right thing, she toasted, her eyes meeting his over the rim of her glass. "Is that what you're doing now?" Marcus asked. "The right thing?" Victoria set down her glass. "I don't know if I can ever make up for what I did to you, Marcus. But I want to try." The next day, Victoria held a press conference announcing a complete overhaul of Blackwood Industries' data privacy policies. Standing beside her at the podium was Marcus, introduced as the company's new chief ethics officer, with full authority to implement and enforce ethical standards across all projects. The industry that had shunned him now celebrated his return. Job offers flooded in, but Marcus had already made his choice. Not just for the prestigious position or the salary that would ensure Lily's future, but for the chance to transform an industry from within, alongside a woman who was learning, day by day, that true power came not from control but from doing what was right. 6 months later, Marcus and Lily moved from their small apartment to a house with a yard where Lily could play. Victoria was a frequent visitor, bringing books for Lily and engaging the little girl in conversations about science and technology that made her eyes light up with curiosity. "She's not the monster I thought she was," Marcus confided to his sister during a family dinner, watching as Victoria helped Lily build a model rocket in the backyard. "No," his sister agreed with a knowing smile. "She's just someone who lost her way and needed the right person to help her find it again." The transformation in Victoria was remarkable to those who had known her before. The ruthless businesswoman was still formidable in the boardroom, but there was a new dimension to her leadership, one that valued people over profits, ethics over expediency. And at her side was Marcus, whose moral compass had never wavered, even when it cost him everything. One evening, as they worked late in her office, Victoria looked up from her computer to find Marcus watching her. "What?" she asked, self-conscious under his gaze. "I was just thinking about how far we've come," he said. "A year ago, you were ruining my life. Now, she prompted when he didn't continue. Marcus smiled. "Now I can't imagine my life without you in it." The admission hung in the air between them, charged with possibility. Victoria's carefully constructed walls had been crumbling for months, brick by brick, under the steady influence of Marcus's integrity and Lily's innocent affection. "I don't deserve this second chance," Victoria whispered. "Maybe not," Marcus agreed, moving to stand beside her desk. "But you got one anyway. The question is, what are you going to do with it?" Victoria stood, eliminating the distance between them. "I'm going to try to be worthy of it," she said, her voice steady despite the vulnerability in her eyes. "Of you." Their first kiss was tentative, a bridge being built between two worlds that once seemed irreconcilable. When they parted, Victoria's usual confidence was replaced by uncertainty. "What about Lily?" she asked. "I'm not exactly mother material." Marcus laughed softly. "Have you seen the way she looks at you? Like you hung the moon and stars. She already adores you." The journey wasn't easy. Victoria had to learn to open her heart after keeping it locked away for so long. Marcus had to learn to trust again after his trust had been so profoundly betrayed. There were arguments and misunderstandings, moments when the past threatened to overshadow the future they were trying to build. But there were also quiet evenings at home, the three of them reading together on the couch. Weekend trips to museums and parks. Victoria teaching Lily to code, Marcus teaching Victoria to bake cookies. A family forming from the most unlikely beginning. A year to the day after Victoria had shown up at Marcus's door in the rain, she proposed, not with a ring, but with a trust fund for Lily's education and a foundation in Marcus's name dedicated to ethical technology practices. "You changed me," she told him as they stood in the garden of what was now their home. "You showed me that true strength isn't about power over others, but about having the courage to do what's right, even when it's hard." Marcus took her hands in his. "And you showed me that people can change, that second chances are worth giving, that forgiveness isn't just a gift you give someone else, it's a gift you give yourself." As they sealed their commitment with a kiss, Lily watching and clapping from the porch, Marcus reflected on the strange and winding path that had brought them here. From enemies to allies to family. From devastation to redemption. From ending to beginning. The woman who had once ruined his career had become the woman who completed his life. And in saving each other, they had found something neither had been looking for but both had desperately needed, a love built not on perfection, but on forgiveness, growth, and the courage to begin again. If this story of redemption and second chances touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more emotional journeys that remind us it's never too late to change our story. Sometimes the person who seems like your worst enemy might just become the love of your life, when you're brave enough to open the door and let them in.